Thanks.
Awesome.
Welcome, folks. I'm Sarah Jane. I am Senior Manager of Communications here at LDS, Learn, Develop, Succeed. And if you've come to the workshop on neurodivergent New Year's resolutions, then you are in the right virtual spot tonight. Um, and we're just going to be an hour together tonight. So thanks for joining us. And I'm just going to introduce Becky to you, who will be leading our workshop tonight, and then she's going to take things away. Please feel free to leave your video on, your audio off. If you're eating supper, catching up on life, you do what you need to do. We're just glad to have you here with us. Becky Bishop is our Senior Manager of Youth and Adult Programs at LDS. LDS is a 55-year-old nonprofit charity here in the Lower Mainland, and we serve learners aged 3 to 103 all across British Columbia and through Canada as well. And part of our mission and what we're up to is serving learners with or without diagnoses, again, all across the country with learning or brain-based differences. And part of what we also love to do is connect with others in the community, share some of our learning, and encourage and inspire other neurodivergent folks to be their best selves and to learn and to grow and to develop and succeed. So welcome here. If you're in the chat already, hi, Manish from London, Ontario. I would love to know where y'all from. Hello from Toronto. Fantastic. I'm a Toronto girl, born and bred, born and raised. Hi, Erin. Hello from Nanaimo. Great. Yeah, please use the chat. Let us know where you're from. And we are recording this workshop. So if there's an issue with your face being seen in any way, shape, or form, do again, feel free to manage your video accordingly. Becky, why don't you take it away for us?
Thank you so much, Sarah Jane. Thank you all for joining us this evening from many different places, it seems. As Sarah Jane mentioned, I'm the Senior Manager of Youth and Adult Programs here at LDS. I myself am neurodivergent. I have a very eclectic background and just super passionate about working with people who have unique learning profiles, building those interpersonal connections, and really diving into the solidarity in learning and navigating day-to-day life. So the new year is a time, or at least this new year, there are many new years throughout the year, is a time when people tend to reflect on the previous year and to look forward to what's going to come. We learn from any lessons and move toward new vision. So I really wanted to tie that into truth and reconciliation with our Indigenous communities as an ongoing process that requires consistent revision and care. And as you reflect on your personal journey, include time in there to reflect on your understanding of reconciliation and set goals to deepen your knowledge. So I wanted to share just a quick little story or piece of information to set you on that journey, highlighting Isabella Kulak. She was a young Indigenous girl from Cote First Nations. She wore a ribbon skirt to school for a formal dress day. And she was shamed for wearing it because it didn't fit the school's expectation of formal dress. The ribbon skirt is traditional regalia, very powerful symbol of identity and empowerment. So because she was shamed for it, there was a huge reaction to it. And in 2022, Bill S-219, called an act respecting a National Ribbon Skirt Day, was passed unanimously in Parliament. So that happens every year in January. And it's really an acknowledgement of the strength, resilience, and cultural diversity of Indigenous women across Canada. I'm joining you today from the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. If you are somewhere else, please feel free to put your own land acknowledgement in the chat. So before we get into, well, I guess I'll go through our agenda. So first I'm going to cover some neurodiversity terms, just in case you're not familiar with neurodiversity. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what I'm calling New Year old traditions. So where does the new year come from and why do we set resolutions? Then I'll get into goal setting and strategies for success. So starting with a review of the neurodivergent terms, to be neurodivergent means that your brain functions in a way that is different than what is considered typical in our society. So the way that you process information varies from what's considered the norm. It's an umbrella term and includes things like ADHD, autism, learning disabilities like dyslexia, etc. Opposite to that is what we would call neurotypicality, which are the brain functions and information processing that's standard, so the opposite of neurodivergent. Neurodiversity is the full spectrum of brain-based differences. So neurodiversity includes both neurodivergent and neurotypical people, but not everyone is neurodivergent. And then the neurodiversity paradigm is an approach that says that neurodiversity is completely natural and it's a valuable form of diversity, that the idea that there is a normal brain is a construct that we created in our culture. And then the neurodiversity movement, which LDS is a part of, is a social justice movement to support neurodivergent individuals in having access to respect and inclusion within our society. So hopefully that if you're not familiar with those definitions, it will help you understand some of the things that we cover in the rest of the presentation. So new year, old traditions. I'd like to invite you to share some of your New Year's Eve or New Year's Day celebration traditions in the chat if you're comfortable. Something that my husband and I do every year is cook a ham. This year we actually ended up cooking it at like 10 p.m. and didn't eat until probably midnight because we were just busy. So yeah, that's what we do every year to celebrate the new year. We do also set some goals, and I'll share with you one of the ways that we do that later in this presentation. So the celebration of the new year dates back over 4,000 years to ancient Mesopotamia. Babylonians were some of the first people to hold New Year celebrations, and they actually did that in March with the spring equinox to celebrate the Earth's renewal and everything coming back. It shifted to January 1st with the Julian calendar to honor Janus, the Roman god of beginnings, gates, and transitions. Janus is usually depicted with two faces, one looking forward and one looking back. So it's really fitting for as a symbol for the new year. At some point in time, the Christian church replaced New Year's Day with Christmas, but then it ended up getting reinstated with the Gregorian calendar. So New Year's Eve and New Year's Day are celebrated worldwide. Typically, people have parties, fireworks, and other traditions that revolve around reflecting on the past year and looking toward the future. And part of that is setting resolutions. New Year's resolutions also date back to ancient Babylon, where the Babylonians promised their gods that they would repay debts and return borrowed items, and it would bring them favor or good luck in the coming year. And it's reflected in various cultures across various timelines where they made such promises so that good things would happen to them in the coming year. When we get to the Christian era, there's more of a moral tone. So the church really encouraged people to reflect on past mistakes and to make resolutions that focused on their spiritual growth. But over time, resolutions have become a little bit more individual, shifting a little more from religious vows to more personal goals like improving health or saving money or getting into a relationship, which really mirrors the cultural trend that emphasizes personal development and self-improvement. Um, so before we get into what a resolution is, despite their long history, they actually have a failure rate of about 80%, and they're usually abandoned by February. So regardless, people still do it. It's a very symbolic way to embrace change and growth. Um, so a New Year's resolution or a resolution is a decision to either do something or not do something. It's usually very open-ended. It's a promise to yourself with no time, no specific time frame, no consideration of the circumstances that might derail your progress. And when you set resolutions, you usually have this short-term confidence that puts you in an immediate state of motivation and belief. So, that first week of January, everybody's back to the gym, and then by February, it's empty again. So the top three New Year's resolutions for 2024 were save money, exercise, and eat healthier. So, very admirable to want to do that and to want to improve yourself. But these resolutions have a very low chance of success. Why? They are super lofty and they're vague and they're unrealistic. So, save money, exercise more, eat healthier. I mean, you can do that, but what are the steps to actually get there? So, without specific actionable steps, these kinds of goals can be really overwhelming and nearly impossible to accomplish. And they tend to be based on all or nothing thinking. So I'm either going to save money or I'm not going to. I'm going to exercise more, I'm not going to. No room for error. So when we look at progress in terms of a binary, so success versus failure, if we have one setback, so if we miss one day of going to the gym, we can derail our whole resolution. And that kind of rigidity can lead to burnout, especially for neurodivergent individuals. A lot of time, resolutions are also rooted in external pressure and not an actual genuine desire to do it. So, societal expectations or trends are very influential when people are setting resolutions. So, for example, trying to attain a beach body according to popular beauty standards, or doing something because we should have this much money in our bank account, and we should be eating healthier, and we shouldn't be eating fast food or what have you. And change is hard. It's really challenging to put in effort, especially if you don't see progress right away. And when you have a neurodiverse brain that really relies on those dopamine hits, not seeing that immediate progress can be really difficult. And if we're not ready to change, it can also be hard to commit to something because there's a lot of psychological and physical preparation that you need to do in order to be able to meet the resolutions that you set. So, in thinking about neurodivergent individuals and resolutions, some of the main challenges that they face include sensory processing, executive functioning, emotional regulation, information processing, and all of those things are really important in order to be able to successfully accomplish a resolution. So, a neurodivergent individual might have difficulty planning, prioritizing, and organizing tasks effectively. They might have a hard time managing multiple sources of information and filtering out distractions that take them away from those resolutions. Again, with that all or nothing thinking, that sense of failure can really cause a lot of internal conflict and amplify negative emotions, which is going to be detrimental to success. In addition, neurodivergent individuals may experience difficulty with transitions or adapting to new environments and adapting to new routines, which can also make it very difficult. So just going to do a quick little group activity here. So I've put this phrase up, you must be successful by age 30. So I invite you to engage in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll ask you to unmute yourself. But I'd like to ask you, what exactly does this mean? So if somebody says you must be successful by age 30, what does that mean?
Sorry,
Exactly,
did I? I
money.
think I think I
Oh,
might have missed something. I thought I got kicked out for something for a second. I think I had a bit of a technical difficulty. Or,
okay.
or are we
No
just
worries,
in?
Sally.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. So I see a couple of comments. You got to have money. You need to have a house. You need to have a car. You need to have kids. Have your dream job. Knowing what you want to do. Have a solid job. What kind of effect does this statement have on someone? So I see the, in all caps, pressure. It's so much pressure, and it is completely unrealistic because it is so vague. What does success even look like? What does it look like to me? What does it look like to you? It can lead to confusion, unmet expectations, and people feeling like they are failing at life because they are not successful by the age of 30 based on some weird made up societal expectation that you have to be this, that, or the other thing by the time you are 30. Um, this really limits the ability for people to grow, and it really overlooks any kind of progress that's been made, which causes a lot of unnecessary stress. And it's, again, unnecessary stress, not necessary. So I'm going to jump into goal setting. So goals are a little bit different than resolutions. Sometimes they are used interchangeably, and I recognize that I definitely used it interchangeably in the last couple of slides, but they are different from each other. So a goal is a commitment to achieving an objective. It is a defined and targeted outcome with a clear direction of attention and effort. Sometimes a goal will have a specific timeline, and they usually do have an action plan. So they are more about encouraging motivation and performance. And when you do effective goal setting, you're considering factors that might block you from achieving that goal. So there are many benefits to goal setting. Studies show that people who set personal goals have higher levels of well-being and a greater sense of purpose. When you start meeting goals, you're more likely to persist through obstacles with greater resilience. And following through can really support the development of essential executive function skills like time management and organization, which are common challenges for neurodivergent individuals. So I'll invite you as we go through to think about a goal that you've set in the past, maybe a goal that you want to set or a common goal. If you're comfortable, you can share, but it's okay to keep it to yourself. And just keep it in mind as we go through the workshop. So I'm going to be using a common goal just to demonstrate the process. And that goal is I will be more organized in 2025. So there are many different ways to set goals. We're going to go through some ways to think about and set goals. I'm outlining here 4 keys to setting goals that will help produce a higher likelihood of success. So first, goals need to be clear and concise. Much easier to achieve a goal when you know that you have achieved it. So for example, I will climb 42 stairs today is much easier to achieve than I will climb some stairs. So you'll climb some stairs, maybe you'll climb 2 stairs. Are you done? I mean, maybe. But if you say, I will climb 42 stairs, and you do 42 stairs, you know that you've completed it. Goals that are based on intrinsic motivation that fulfill internal desires like self-improvement instead of extrinsic goals focusing on external rewards like money or recognition have a higher likelihood of being met, and people who pursue intrinsic goals are more likely to be satisfied and more motivated in the long term. Goals that are focused on outcomes really explain the benefit and value of achieving the goal instead of focusing on the output of the goal. And we'll talk a little bit more specifically about that. When you focus on the output, it makes it a little more inflexible, which leads us to our next key, which is that goals should be frequently reviewed. So feedback is essential to the goal setting process because our lives change, things happen. So it's important to be able to adjust your goals to meet your needs and to meet the dynamic aspects of your life. And sometimes you might set a goal and then realize that you need to set a different goal before you meet that goal. Also highlighting some keys to neuroaffirming goals. Traditional goals tend to ignore some of these. So for neurodivergent individuals, goals can feel overwhelming or unattainable. And when that happens over and over, it leads to frustration and burnout. So neuroaffirming goals validate differences and align with unique ways of experiencing the world. They're not based on neurotypical expectations or the idea that something needs to be fixed. So it can be about exploring, enjoying, and growing. Neuroaffirming goals prioritize well-being and leave behind the guilt of trying to meet those neurotypical standards. So just reflect on your goal. Does it have any of these keys? Maybe. So I'm going to go through some steps of setting goals, and I'm going to use that example that I mentioned. I will be more organized in 2025. So before you set a goal, it's a good idea to reflect on your strengths and to think about your challenges that might impact your ability to meet the goal. So when you understand what your strengths are, you can leverage them to achieve your goal, and then also recognize your challenges so that you can address them when you're working toward it. So for example, I find it challenging to keep things organized because I do not always have enough energy or motivation to put things away. So that motivation and energy, low energy, are challenges. So I can recognize that those are going to be roadblocks for me. So I can think about how to address them before I really start working toward this goal. My strength, I'm creative, which can help me come up with systems that work for me. So thinking about how can I set up some systems in order to meet the goal to be more organized in 2025. In addition, you're more likely to follow through on a goal when it's rooted in what truly motivates you and considers your needs. So when you do set a goal, reflect on goals you've set before, think about what worked and didn't work, and ask yourself whether external expectations drive the goal or if it's actually personally meaningful. Why are you setting this goal? Are you setting it because somebody else in your life wants you to be better in a way that they think is the right way to be, or is it actually something that you want? So for example, I want to be more organized because I lose things all the time. I feel stressed when my environment is cluttered, so I want to reduce my stress. So after you have figured out why you're setting the goal, break it down. So think big, but start small. So break down your goal into small, doable tasks. Common problem when setting goals is the overwhelmingness that follows or uncertainty about how to start. And that can cause you to procrastinate and be stagnant on your progress. Breaking it down can make it more specific and help you identify the steps that you need to take to meet the goal. So start by defining your goals and priorities. So which spaces am I going to organize first? Which spaces need to be organized? Maybe I want to organize the space that I spend the most time in. And then visualize what the end result looks like and set goals based on that. So what does an organized space look and feel like? There's probably no garbage. Maybe there's less clutter, so there are less physical items in the space. So try to get to the smallest possible action when you're thinking about it. So here you can see the example I've given. Gather bags or boxes for trash and donations. That is one step, a little mini goal. Sort items into keep, donate, and discard. Take out the trash. Bring the donations to a donation bin. Group items together. Create zones. So when you start small and you see those small successes, you're really building that motivation and momentum. And when you become a little bit more specific, you can see that your goal might change. So I've changed, I will be more organized in 2025 to I will create a system to keep my home office organized. And that's a little bit more specific, and I can clearly write down what the steps are. So after you've broke it down, it can be helpful to make it visual. So coming up with some sort of cue that triggers your brain to think about the behavior that you're going for. Out of sight, out of mind is very relevant for a neurodivergent brain. So writing down a goal in a book with a cover that you're going to close is much less effective than writing them on a sticky note and putting them up on the wall where you're going to see them. So here, for this goal, I'm going to write the actions I need to take on a sticky note. I'm going to put them up on the wall, and when I complete them, I'm going to take the sticky notes down, and I'll be able to see the group of sticky notes shrinking and shrinking. And every time I take down a sticky note, that's a little dopamine hit that my brain gets, very exciting, and it makes me want to do more. And that's a new goal with new actions. So your new goal now is to write the actions I need to take for this goal on sticky notes and then put them up. So you can kind of see how goals can build on each other and kind of creating those smallest possible actions. And of course, you need to give your goal time. So depending on your personal specific challenges that you have with time, you might want to set a specific time or schedule to work on completing the actions. If you struggle with task initiation, you might avoid setting specific timeframes or consider super small ones and use a timer. The reason I say that is because you can really get stuck in the idea that something's going to take a very long time, or you might experience that waiting freeze where something else is coming and you don't want to be late for that. So that's all you can think about, and you can't spend any time doing something else. So it can also be easier to convince yourself to do something for 2 minutes instead of 15 or 30 minutes. More often than not, once you start doing something, you end up continuing that task. And if you don't, that's fine too. If that timer goes off in 2 minutes and you're like, nah, I'm done, then you're done. And that's great. You made progress. If you work on something for 2 minutes at a time, that's more effective than never working on it. Also important to indicate how you're going to know that you've met the goal. So whether it's a concrete finish line or a developed habit. So if we look at the example goal, I'm going to spend 5 minutes at the end of my workday, either starting, continuing, or finishing an action. I'm going to set reminders on my phone once a month to check in. I will know I've met my goal when all of the sticky notes are gone. So I am setting some time, just 5 minutes at the end of my workday. I'm already going to be in my home office. My sticky notes are on the wall. I can see what I'm working on. I can decide what I'm working on, and then I'll set a reminder to make sure that I'm checking in, that I'm working on it, figure out if I'm not working on it, figure out maybe why I'm not working on it. And when all those sticky notes are gone, I've met the goal and I can move on to a new goal. And then finally, it is important to revisit your goals and your mini goals often to determine the progress that you're making, whether you need to make any adjustments, or if the goal is no longer meaningful to you. So maybe you set a goal, but something happened and it just doesn't make sense to meet that anymore. And it's okay to give up on that goal. Life happens, things change, your priorities probably are going to change too. So the goal is progress, not perfection. Just get it done. And incremental progress, like I said, working on 2 minutes, something for 2 minutes at a time is better than never working on it. And it really helps your brain's reward system stay happy. It makes you more likely to stick with it. So low effort is still effort. Um, and also just keep in mind that you might not be ready for a goal yet, and that's fine too. So going to go through some strategies for success. And this is perhaps one of the most important actions, some of the most important actions to take when you're working toward meeting a goal. So the first is to be flexible and kind to yourself. Working toward a goal is almost never linear, and you are more than likely going to face some roadblocks in the process. So, giving yourself permission to take breaks and adapt to what's going on, adapt to your emotions, your physical state, your mental state, instead of giving up. So anytime you feel like you've failed, it's really just feedback that you're giving yourself. It's not the end. You're not a complete failure because you didn't meet that goal. There's lots of time. And goals should really adapt to you and your life and not the other way around. So there's no point in setting a goal that's just way out of bounds of what's realistic to you. So when you forgive yourself for making mistakes and taking breaks, you're less likely to sit in the shame of it and delay your progress. So when you are able to take a step back and say, you know what, I didn't really do anything I said I would do today, this week, this month, but that's okay. I needed to take that break. And now I have a little bit more energy. I can start working toward it. And again, incremental changes lead to lasting results. Practicing positive self-talk often, be your own cheerleader, show empathy towards yourself and efforts to shift your motivation. If you can't do that, find somebody else who will. Find somebody who will be a cheerleader for you, who will check in a kind way and not a pushy or stressful way, not a shameful way. You can definitely do hard things. Sometimes the hard thing is not what you need right now, and that is okay. Take it day by day. Make sure that you're prioritizing your well-being, which includes your emotional regulation and giving your body what it needs. So if we're going from, so one of the most common goals resolutions that people set is to exercise more. So going from 0 to the gym is likely not going to work. It's very rare that that's actually going to work. Whereas if you start smaller, so let's say your goal is to get your sneakers on or get your running shoes on, and you can meet that goal consistently, then maybe you can walk to the gym. You don't have to go in, you just walk to it and get used to doing that. And then maybe you go inside and just like stand in there for a couple of minutes. Making those incremental changes are more realistic because sometimes it's really just getting to the gym that's the hard part. So if you can do that and then eventually get into the gym, you're more likely to be successful than if you just say that you're going to go in the gym and work out for an hour. You're not going to get there. So we are going to send out this presentation later, and I do have a couple of worksheets to go with it. This is one of them. So when we're thinking about goal setting and the steps that I've gone through, so frame your why, break it down, make it visual, give it time, revisit and review, I've put a few questions to ask yourself as you are going through. So why do I want to achieve this goal? Is it personally meaningful? Is it based on external expectations? How can I leverage my strengths? How can I address my challenges? What are the steps I need? How do I create the smallest possible actions? What are my priorities? How do I set up cues? What steps do I need to take? How will I know when I've met it? Et cetera, et cetera. So these are all on the worksheet. And when you are setting goals, you can ask yourself these questions to help you set the goal up and set yourself up for success. So I wanted to give you an example of an alternative way to set goals. So I'm offering, this is also in the worksheet, as a goal setting bingo card. So this is actually the way that I have set goals for myself for 2025. Created a bingo card. I'm a very crafty, artsy person, so this was very fun. And it has so many benefits, especially for a neurodivergent brain, because each of these squares is a very small action. You can't fit very much in there. It's not a big goal. Like, it's got to be a very specific goal. And it gives you quick gratification because you've got so many spaces and you can cross it off. You can like challenge yourself to get a straight line or a diagonal line or four corners or whatever, giving you like a real sense of accomplishment. It also makes it so that it's gamified. So that's really beneficial, especially for an ADHD brain, is to make something a game. I myself am a big fan of bingo in general. So having a bingo card that I look at almost every single day is super fun. It can also help with habit tracking. So if you want to develop a habit, you can make a separate habit card, and I'll give a specific example of that in just a second. And it's also just a way of creative organization. So it can be very simple. It can just be things that you write in the bingo card. You can take it a step further and design it, draw pictures, put stickers, whatever works for you. I currently have my bingo card on my wall just right by my bedroom door. So when I walk in and out, I see it. I see it every single day. And I already find it very helpful. It's the first time I'm using it. So live review, it's working. You can check in with me at the end of 2025 to see if I followed through on those goals. So I'll give you an example here of some goals. So some of these are actual goals from my bingo card and some of them are not. So read 5 books, watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, swim in a lake. Like, they can be so simple. They don't have to be these like really deep self-changing things. They can just be fun. Like, eat 100 bananas. That's not on my list. I don't love bananas, but I mean, if you want to eat 100 bananas, eat 100 bananas. And then you could make that a fun game. So maybe you could make another little card with 100 blocks on it and just check it off every time you eat bananas. Or you can like save those little stickers that are on the bananas and put them on a sheet of paper. You can just make it extra fun. Type 50 words a minute. Learn all the lyrics to an album. I'm not sure the age range of people here. If anyone remembers sitting by the radio and trying to write down the lyrics of a song, or getting a getting a new cassette tape or a CD that had the like big flyer with the lyrics on it. Yeah. Volunteering, try 3 hot chocolates from the Hot Chocolate Festival. So many things that you can do in a year that make you feel that sense of accomplishment, instead of putting a lot of pressure on yourself to, change who you are. So I'm definitely a little bit early, but that's okay. We'll have more time for questions. We could talk about some more goals. So need more support with setting goals. That is something that we can support with at LDS. So we offer lots of different services. The main one that I want to highlight is our executive functioning assessment. This is for children, youth, and adults. That includes a thorough report and debrief session to plan next steps and understanding where your executive function skills are can be really helpful when you're trying to set goals. Because if you are struggling with task initiation or planning organizing, then you can better understand where you're having those challenges and to be able to work with them and also to leverage your strength to get to where you want to be. We offer other level B assessments. So the brief, which is the executive functioning assessment for identification of strengths and areas of opportunities with executive functioning skills. We do professional development and workshops. So we do private workshops and community workshops like this one. You can find them on our website. We offer one-to-one instruction for children, youth, and adults in person, at school, and online. Formal assessment and identification of learning challenges. We have assistive technology services, family coaching, adult learning program, all kinds of things. Sarah Jane, do you want to add anything here?
No, you're doing great.
Oh, fantastic. Um, And this workshop is completely free. We do support a lot of learners. We are a nonprofit charity, and all of our services are offered on a sliding scale based on household income. You don't need a diagnosis to get access to the learning support that we offer. And 77% of our families access our Bright Futures bursary fund. That's a lot of our families. It's very necessary. So if you do have the capacity to donate, please feel free to scan the QR code. Every single dollar helps us. We are not government funded, so all of our bursaries and the support that we provide is all fundraised by our incredible team and by the people who make those donations. All right, thank you. Just looking at the chat, yes, there is a hot chocolate festival, and there are over 100 different hot chocolates that you can try. So if
Wow.
you Google hot chocolate festival, they actually have a list of every single one. I have a list of the ones that I want to try, but there's too many, so it's only like maybe a month or 6 weeks long. But some of them are so good, especially if you really like strange food. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Um, Thank you again for being here and going through this workshop with me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Um, I haven't been really looking close at the chat. Are there any questions, Sarah Jane, that you kept track of?
No, I think Dave has one. And you can just unmute yourself, Dave, and ask your question if you like, or Becky can read it in the chat. He's curious about whether you can share about SMART goals versus other kinds of goals that are more effective for neurodivergent folks.
I can share about SMART goals. So if you're not familiar, SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. I think that's right. Um, so SMART goals work for some people, not for others. So there are aspects of the SMART goal that I did include in the steps for goal setting in this workshop. So making sure that your goal is specific, knowing when you've met the goal. Are you able to actually achieve the goal? Is it a realistic goal? Is it a timely goal? That does work for some people, but that really, the rigid structure of it can sometimes be a roadblock to setting an effective goal. Is there anything you want me to speak of more specifically to SMART goals?
No, that was really helpful. Excuse me. I found the what you presented here was a lot more gentle than that rigid approach to SMART goals, and so I was really curious about some of the difference because there was some chat about SMART goals, so that was really helpful. Thank you.
No problem. I myself am not a fan of SMART goals because I find them very difficult to write when you are following that structure because the SMART goal structure expects you to write all of those points in the one goal, and it just becomes really complex and hard to read. So just kind of breaking down those steps a little bit and rearranging them is much more helpful than following that kind of SMART structure. I see. How do you pick a New Year's resolution when you don't make any?